You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
Stay hungry.
Hungry. Foolish. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
This is the E-Commerce All-Stars podcast, brought to you with heart by Nadimo.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today's show with your host Brandon Moscow, of course. And today I'm excited. We have Rick Cesari on the phone. I hope I said that right there, Rick.
You did.
Awesome. I figured so because you've kind of spelt it out for me, but you never know. I'm excited to have you on the show today. Talk a lot about using video in your marketing and your marketing strategy overall. I'm a big proponent of video. I love using video, and I really think people need to use it more, myself included. So thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I was hoping that you could give everybody a little bit of a background on yourself and what got you started and some of the successes you've had.
Sure. I'll just try to give your listeners a quick overview. I actually, this will sound funny to some people, have a degree in biology, and my plan was to go to dental school. But after graduating from college, I kind of got tired of school. So I got into real estate and started to go into real estate seminars. And that's how I kind of learned to do direct-to-consumer marketing. And some of the early real estate seminar guys were the first guys to use video infomercials or direct response television, whatever. And I learned it very early, and I learned it by promoting real estate seminars and was able to build up a real estate seminar very successful. I'm going to date myself now. This was the late 80s. And I always had a passion for health and nutrition. So I used that same marketing model to create the Juice Man and Bread Man brands using, again, direct response television for the marketing. And that company grew from 0 to 75 million in only about 3.5 years. We were able to sell it successfully. And then people started coming to me asking me if I could help them with their marketing. And I kind of got into the agency business by accident. And I spent the next pretty much 20 years doing that for other people. Products like the Sonicare toothbrush, OxyClean, George Foreman grill, Rug Doctor. More recently, the GoPro camera. We did all the television marketing for GoPro and, very heavy video marketing concepts with that. So even though the distribution channel has changed over the years, from TV to a much more online now, the concepts that make video work and make viewers respond to video still hold true. And so I work with a lot of people and companies now, teaching them about video marketing and more of the content of the videos and what makes them successful. And I have a new book coming out this month, actually, called Building Billion-Dollar Brands. It talks about some of those case studies. But my next book is actually called Video Persuasion, and it's really how you use video to get people to take a certain action.
Very cool. I've always been a fan, secret fan of the infomercial world. I just like the approach and how the whole sales method there, and I find that I've always felt that that's something that could work really well online, especially now with video being something that's so much more accessible than it was even just a few years ago through the online world. You mentioned some concepts. I was hoping you could touch on some of those concepts that you found work in marketing, in the video marketing.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're a big proponent of video, and I'd just like to kind of talk about a couple statistics first, and then we'll go into some concepts. But video is so powerful. When viewers actually retain 95% of a message when they watch it on video, compared to only 10% when reading it in a text, and that comes from Wirebuzz. Social videos generate 1,200% more shares than just text and images. And video marketing is even more powerful. Using video in an email leads to a 200 to 300% increase in click-through rates, and that comes from HubSpot. Including video on a landing page can increase conversion rates by as much as 80%. And 64% of consumers purchased after watching branded social videos. And I 2 years ago, I gave the keynote speak at an Amazon show called the Prosper Show. And that was for a lot of people that are selling on Amazon. And that's a kind of a very cutthroat marketplace where you're always looking for the best edge you can get. And Amazon is starting to expand the amount of video you can use on your listings and, certain ways of doing it. And we've had some people that have started using video on their Amazon listings, and they've increased their conversions by up to 20%. So the reason I mentioned a lot of those statistics is really just to reinforce that if you aren't using video on your website, in your e-commerce, emails, Amazon listings, you really need to be doing so just because it's such an effective medium. And a lot of the things we learned about consumer behavior doing infomercials or direct marketing using the infomercials. Even though the television set was the distribution channel, the things that the way you put together the video and the basically the content of the video and what people respond to still hold true regardless of how people choose to view the videos.
Yeah, I would imagine it would still hold true. I mean, it's just a different distribution channel, right? It's instead of watching it on the TV, you're watching it on your phone or on your laptop or computer via the internet and whatever social channel that people have shared it from.
Yeah, just one good thing, people always say, well, people's attention spans are definitely decreasing. And if you think about it, why would anyone ever people really didn't tune in to watch a 30-minute infomercial. And people always talk about the length that a video needs to be online. And basically, if you can capture people's attention quickly, then length isn't hugely important, because if you have someone's interest and you're creating video that's interesting, they'll stay to watch the end of it. Now, not every video is for every single person, so they have to be interested in the subject matter. But if they are, you hear people say, oh, you only have 30 seconds, you only have a minute. The key is to capture their attention quickly, and then be able to, once you do that, then the length isn't as important. I think people will stay tuned in to watch whatever message you're trying to deliver.
I would have to agree with that. I used to be I used to think, okay, it has to be shorter videos better, that sort of thing. And in some ways that does hold true, but in other ways, I think what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, is if you're capturing their attention and you continue to capture their attention, they're going to keep listening because they're interested in what you're saying. And that's kind of the whole premise of the infomercial, right? I mean, my understanding of it would be that you're providing information and you're keeping people engaged through doing that. So what are some of the concepts that, like, how do you keep people's attention and those types of things? What have you found?
There's, some of the different content in videos that is most effective. And again, I'm looking at this through a lens that covers like 25 years of direct-to-consumer marketing. Lots of, I mentioned some of the successes, but lots of failures along the way too. And testing things that work and things that don't work, you get great feedback. And probably one of the single most important things, and this might sound anticlimactic to some of your listeners, but probably the single most important marketing tool that you can include in any video or on your website are really authentic testimonials. And if you have people testimonials talking about your product, service, or business, that I've always found to be the single most powerful thing that people will respond to. And so I find a lot of times out in the marketplace that people are afraid to talk to their customers. And I always recommend that one of the first things people do is reach out to any existing customers and see if you can sit down and talk to them for 15 and 20 minutes. We usually do this in front of a video camera. We might get 10 people to come to our office or come to a house that we might rent, sit down and talk to those people and interview them, you'll find out exactly what people like about your product, what they don't like about it. You'll have all this content captured on videotape and lots of great sound bites that you can choose to use in your marketing moving forward. But I always said that I could pretty much sell anything if I had enough good, authentic testimonials.
Yeah, I heard that once too. I forget who it was, but that was one of the biggest pieces of advice they had. And basically, every time they went into a big sales meeting, and now we're talking outside of the world of e-commerce, however, but they would basically bring a book of testimonials. And this is back in the day, and I'm aging myself as well, but walk in with a binder or walk in with a book of testimonials and authentically written letters and that sort of thing that people could look at. And I do find that it's quite powerful when you see it and when you're listening to it in a video and you see somebody say, why this product is the best product or what their thoughts on this product are, because it's a little bit more believable when you hear other people saying it and people who you can relate to.
Oh, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, people that you can relate to. There's three main reasons why testimonials work so well. They're great for overcoming objections. You might see, like, if you write a line of advertising copy that's on your website that says that this product really works, you have a vested interest in saying that. So there's a little bit of believability. But if you have customer testimonials on there, basically people's mindset when they read advertising is this product won't work for me because, and then they fill in the blank, because I'm too short, too tall, too rich, too poor, too fat, too thin. But if they see someone else that looks like them or they can relate to, or they want to aspire to delivering the message, it's the best way to overcome objections. But probably the most powerful reason they work is something called social proof, which is actually a psychological concept where if people are in a position and they want to make a decision, whether that's to buy or not to buy a product, one thing that they'll do if they're unsure is they'll look around to other people's behavior. What is someone else doing? And follow that. And that's kind of, I call it like kind of a herd mentality, but it's actually a psychological thing that's been studied quite a bit. And so testimonials are a great way to provide that social proof to break down the barriers to purchase.
Sorry, I didn't react right away there because I was just digesting what you had to say, because I'm a big fan of social proof in various forms, testimonials being one of them. And then, I mean, there's also, and maybe I'm stepping outside of social proof, but statistics and providing numbers and providing, this item got a 5-star review and those types of things. Is that something you touch on in your video?
No, that's absolutely true. To me, what I call that's establishing third-party credibility. Again, you're going beyond you as the product owner or site owner making a claim, and you're saying, you don't have to believe me. Look at what this other person is saying. Look at what this magazine is saying. Look at what this statistic is. And these are all things that help break down barriers to purchase, and very, very important to use. In addition to testimonials, it's a different way of doing social proof. But again, it's basically using third-party credibility.
I like the terminology you're using with breaking down those barriers to purchase, because I recently did a podcast on convenience and eliminating friction throughout the e-commerce world and in consumer selling, direct to consumer. I think that whole idea of frictionless is also related in some ways to the breaking down of those barriers to purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned something earlier in the conversation, which I'm a huge believer in. And I believe in selling through educating the consumer and not trying to do like a hard sell here, you have to buy this, But basically, if you have a good product that you're trying to sell and you educate the consumer about the benefits to them, to him or her, then the buying decision becomes much easier. And every one of these large projects or brands that we built really started with an education process. And, we didn't start working with these products after they were well known. Almost every one of them was a startup when we got involved, or doing very low sales. But, I'll use a case of a Sonicare toothbrush, for example, and how the video helped educate the consumers. If you put a Sonicare toothbrush on the shelf when it first came out, it was $150. And consumers, there's no way they would go into a store, look at a box and say, buy that. Why should I? So the video content that we created was really educating people about gum disease and how a product with sonic technology that could clean beyond the bristles would really help with eliminating and helping reverse gum disease. And that's when the product took off, once people understood the benefit of the sonic technology.
Well, it's actually quite interesting what you're saying there too, because I find that a lot of startups have a very big challenge ahead of them in regards to, it depends on the startup, obviously, but a lot of them have a big challenge, and that is educating.
Mm-hmm.
They have this, a new product, a new invention, so to speak, and how do you go about educating the public about that? And like this type of video is, I think, an excellent opportunity, and we're in a day and age now where you can spread that word a lot quicker, in a sense, through social.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say it's much easier today to technically even to create video, with the fact that you can do it on your iPhone, and then distribution wise through the different social platforms, you can basically create great video content and tell your story and get it out there. And, if I had any type of budget when I was am doing a new product launch or startup, a lot of that goes into creating good video content. I'll give your listeners a good example. There's a website out there called Pluggable, and they sell computer peripherals, docking stations, things like that. They're probably going to do close to 20 million in sales this year in a lot of the online marketplaces. And they built that entire business by really creating lots of YouTube videos and video content about all the products that they marketed, and really just that whole thing was done through video marketing, for lack of a better word.
That's interesting. And one thing you mentioned there too was online marketplaces. Do you find that, I guess there's many ways to sell online, and I cover a lot of that, and I cover a lot through your website as well as through various marketplaces, and I know that marketplaces are getting more and more competitive, and you've mentioned that yourself, and mentioned Amazon opening up a little bit more of their video component. But I guess kind of going back to this example you used, and you mentioned that a lot of it's going to be through the marketplaces. Do you find that brands are able to sell and build their brand, so to speak? And when I say build their brand, to me, it's kind of like educating people and being able to do that through selling through a marketplace, or do you find that they have more success selling direct through their website? Like,
all right, so that's a great question. And I always recommend that the first thing someone does is build their own website and try to do direct-to-consumer marketing or direct-to-consumer education. And to me, the website is twofold. It's the place where your story lives, your brand story that you come up with. What's your unique selling proposition? Why is your product different than everybody, or service different than everybody else? And the website is the place where all that information lives. And if you're creating video, where that lives. And then what you do is figure out how to do marketing through different channels of driving traffic to the website. And to me, once you do that, people are going to choose to buy your product what's most convenient for them. So I'm a big believer in kind of foundationally creating that direct relationship first through e-commerce, building your database so you can remarket to people, and then branch out into these online marketplaces, just because you are missing out on a huge audience if you don't do that. But to me, the foundation is the website, the direct sales, the database that all comes from e-commerce marketing through your own website.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you there as well. I was more open to wanting to hear your opinion, which is most definitely why I didn't lead that question in any direction, because I wanted to hear what your thoughts were. Because the one thing that I would agree entirely, the marketplaces have a huge opportunity, and there's a large volume of potential sales being missed if you're not there. But I don't think everybody has the pockets to just dive into all areas all at once. And I think it's, even if you do, I think it's smart to attack it, so to speak, in a logical fashion. And I think building your website first allows you to, like you said, get those email addresses, build your list, build all of that interactions with your customers, which you can't necessarily captivate on in the marketplace.
Yeah, and again, we might be going outside of the area we're supposed to be talking about, but that's probably the biggest challenge with people that are selling on Amazon. Amazon's a great platform; it can generate lots of sales, but they control the customer. And every big seller I know on Amazon is struggling to find ways to develop that direct relationship, which is, they can do that through their own website and building their own database. So these other things, the online marketplaces, should be looked at as additional distribution channels that you add on at the appropriate time, but your foundation is definitely your own website.
Excellent. So since I did go off base a little bit, I think I'd like to end it with one question for you, which is what every entrepreneur should learn from GoPro.
Oh, that's a good one. So I didn't mention GoPro as one of the products. I did that one of the products that we worked with, and with that one, I would say, because I just give you a backup and just tell you real quickly the GoPro story, and I think it'll answer the question as we go. And I go to different trade shows and look for products to market. And so about 8 years ago, I went down to the outdoor retailing trade show in Salt Lake City. And Nick Woodman, the founder of GoPro, was just getting started in business. He was a surfer, and he was basically drove his Volkswagen bus onto the floor, and that was his trade show booth. He set up a little beach chair and some sand, and he was selling the units out of the back of the bus. And I told him I thought this was a good product. He was very passionate about it. And 2 weeks after the trade show, he flew up to Seattle and basically talked about how he wanted to build $1 billion company. And we basically spent an entire lunch and afternoon talking about how that we could do that, and really visualizing where we were at the time to where we wanted to be. We didn't put a time frame on it. We just knew that here's where we are, here's where we want to be. And then the kind of the pieces to make that happen seem to come or fall into place as needed. So I would say, to answer your question, the biggest lesson you can learn is really set some, and again, this isn't new information, but set some real goals that you want to be, even if you might think at the time they're unattainable. And before you know it, you'll start working towards and reaching those goals.
That's awesome. And it kind of leads into my final question I ask everybody on every show, which is, do you have any final words of wisdom for anyone?
Yeah, I just actually did a talk recently, and it's a concept that took me quite a while to realize. I think a lot of people might have heard of this before, but it's the concept that success comes from within, and it's believing in yourself and the confidence to try things and take some risks and not worrying about failing, If you believe in yourself, you know that at some point you're going to be successful, and really just having the confidence to try things. And I didn't have that in the early part of my career, and kind of avoided some opportunities that I would have otherwise had. And so it's kind of very on a fundamental level, confidence and believing in yourself and believing in your abilities, and you'll absolutely be a success at some point.
Awesome advice. I appreciate that. Last little bit is, how can people get a hold of you?
Okay, so I have a couple first of all, they can go to my website, rickcesari.com. I have a couple of different things that they can download. One is called The 5 Keys to Building a Great Brand, and we talk about unique selling proposition and a positioning and testimonials and things that you need, 5 things that you need that were in common with all the brands we talked about. And then the other one is actually a guide to how you can make any video work better. And both of those are free downloads, and they're at my website, which is rickcesari.com, RICKCESARI, rickcesari.com.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Rick. Just a quick personal note I thought was kind of interesting. You said in the very beginning of the show that you started off wanting to go to dental school, and then one of the products that you ended up really bringing to the world was Sonicare, which is,
Yeah, I didn't think about that connection before, but that's kind of cool. I was sitting around as a senior in high school and talking to my best friend, and this was down in Daytona Beach, Florida, and he ended up going to dental school, and he's a dentist today, and I kind of took the other road and ended up getting involved in marketing. But that was kind of a neat coincidence in being able to market the Sonicare toothbrush.
Yeah, it would have been. Anyhow, I appreciate it, your time and all your knowledge you just dropped on the show, and I very much appreciate that, and so do my listeners. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate it.
You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
Stay hungry.
Hungry. Foolish. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.
This is the E-Commerce All-Stars podcast, brought to you with heart by Nadimo.com.